Zach, my uncle. Also, shout out to Carly, my aunt. Third row from the back, there you go. Yeah. So I would tell you what he does, but I don't really understand it, and most likely probably make up some techie career that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to tell you my favorite list of accomplishments that Zach has done. The first one, he's hung out with Steph Curry, which is pretty dope. Second one.
Does that mean cool?
What?
Does that mean cool?
Yeah, dope. Sorry for you old people. Dope is cool. Okay, my second one, he's witnessed a FaceTime call with Justin Bieber. That's also a very popular singer for my old people. He's hooked up movie tickets actually with his 15-year-old girl's dream come true. So, and then my third one, he's been outside of Bruno Mars's house. He wasn't invited to be inside because he's not that cool, but true story, yeah, right? But he's pretty cool. He's related to us, so he must be cool, right? Anyways, we love him. He's an amazing guy. And yeah, Colson kind of knows a little bit more what he does, so he's gonna Come on.
He's just worked for the past 10 years with technology, social media, business type focuses. He builds and creates apps like Bubble, right? And Take Joy, stuff like that. So, give him the floor.
Sorry, our intro was longer. We'll give you more time.
Alright. Is this working? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to probably shout into this, even though it's a microphone, just out of habit, but thanks for the intro, guys. That was dope. So that is a true story. I wasn't cool enough to get into Bruno Mars's house. That stuff is semi-relevant to what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about technology and media. I, as Colson mentioned, have spent the last 10 years or so of my career building different applications that we marketed through social media. I built a company in 2010. It was a social media marketing company, and we helped small and medium-sized businesses, some larger enterprises, find new customers on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. And through that process, I became way more familiar with these apps than anybody would ever want to be, to the point of sort of technological and media overdose, if you will. And so some of the things that I learned in that process are semi-concerning, and some of those things that I learned are also things that I view as opportunities for all of us to be maybe a little bit more intelligent and more creative in how we spread the gospel. So with that as kind of a quick introduction, the content for this discussion today is a little bit battle tested. I did this in my own ward a couple of months ago. It was an interesting experience. I have a sort of direct way of speaking. Please don't take that as me being judgmental or anything like that. I've collected a lot of data over the last several years from kids like you, kids in this room. I've spent time in almost every high school in Utah County and Salt Lake County over the last couple of years doing different focus groups for social media applications. I've talked to kids, I've observed their behaviors, I've looked at usage metrics that are publicly available. So I'm not making this up, I'm not being dramatic for the sake of drama or anything like that. I'm going to challenge everybody to do a few things at the end of the presentation today. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand. There's a lot to go over though, so I'll try and kind of cruise through a little bit. If it's not a super essential question, maybe we save it for the end and we can get into a bunch of stuff at the end. So, raise your hand if you have a smartphone. Or should I say raise your hand if you don't have a smartphone? Probably a better question, right? If you're a youth and you're raising your hand, your parents do love you. I promise. What kind of phone do you have? Are you an Android? Android users, raise your hand. iPhone users, raise your hand. Okay? I'm interested in what apps you have. This has been shared. What apps do you guys have? Give me like your top 3. Fortnite, Instagram, Snapchat. Word cookies? Okay, let's go to this row. Top 3 apps. ESPN, Facebook, Instagram. Okay? Anyone got something that's pretty essential to their lives from a just mobile application that they feel like they use every day, can't live without? Marco Polo, okay. What else? Yeah, buddy? Clash Royale. Okay. I think we covered most of these. Obviously, your default messaging app everybody's using all the time. Anybody here like to mess around on Twitter? Just not as much, right? YouTube. Okay, so you guys mentioned some social media apps. Who do you follow on, let's say, Instagram that is not a friend of yours? Meaning like a celebrity or something like that. I heard Donovan Mitchell. Okay. Jimmy Fallon. Okay. Who else over here? What about you guys? Anyone? No? I don't know if that's really good. Okay. How many texts, snaps, Instagram DMs do you think you send and receive in a day? Give me like a ballpark. You. Shout it out when you know, or when you think you know. How about we do this? More than 50, raise your hand, that you send and receive in a day. More than 100, keep your hand up. Keep your hands high. More than 100 in a day. More than 150 in a day.
Higher call.
More than 200, keep your hands up. Okay. All right. I'll say this really quickly. Priests and Laurels most likely have no idea you're over 200. Almost across the board. You probably don't realize it. Well over 200. This is across, trust me, a lot of data samples. High schoolers in the state of Utah and Salt Lake counties, it's quite a bit over 200. Sometimes well over 200 on just Snapchat. So that's in a day, by the way. Raise your hand if you like video games. That includes games on your phone. What consoles do you have in your home? Xbox? Wii? Okay. Okay, what are your must-have games? You said Fortnite. What else? Clash Royale, I heard. What? Call of Duty?
No.
Halo? Madden? Uncharted? Okay. How many days a week do you play video games? Raise your hand if it's more than 6. Every day? Be honest, do you play video games every day? That includes games on your phone.
Every day.
Okay.
All right, let's next down just a little bit. Reverently, please raise your hand if you play Fortnite. Raise it high. Keep your hand up if you play Fortnite every day. I'm not sure.
I don't have a problem or anything.
Fortnite is one of the most addictive games built. It's why it's so successful. It's almost impossible to go a day without playing it if you start playing it. Am I right?
No.
Okay. No? I heard a no. You don't think so? Alrighty. Alright, youth, what are some of your parents' rules as it comes to like where and when you can use your phone?
I can't have it in my room at night.
Can't have it in your room at night. Awesome. What else? What other rules do you have as it relates to using your phone?
Only 1 hour.
What's that?
Only 1 hour.
Only 1 hour a day? Okay. Awesome. What else? Are the rest of you just sort of kind of do what you do, right? Any other rules that you have? Okay? Yeah. Can't talk to people after 10. Okay? Anything else? All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict are your parents when it comes to you using your phone? I'm not talking about how much you hear from them about how you need to get off your phone. I'm talking about the actual rules. 1 out of 10. You're saying 4? Put a number up. If it's 10 out of 10, put both hands up. Yeah, put them high. Put them high. By the way, that means 1 is not strict at all, 10 is really strict. So I've given I've had this discussion before. Most youth rated their parents around a 4, like a 3 to 4. In other words, they could probably, meaning mom and dad, could probably get away with a whole lot more, but they're not pushing. So mom and dad, just something to think about. Do your parents try to monitor what you do on your phone? Are they good at it? No. Mom and dad, that's likely the truth. You, how long could you go without your phone? Could you go, raise your hand if you could go an hour without your phone. Okay, youth, we're going to do a little activity. I would like you to bring your phone and put it right here on this bench. Reverently, please.
Minutes.
Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything to them. Alright, who hung on to their phone? If you said you couldn't go an hour without it, then alright. At least you're honest. Mom and dad, how long could you go without your phone? Either or. Willingly free. Okay. Alright, you, how long could you go without Snapchat? Let me ask you this, you, really quickly. What's your longest snap streak currently? 0. What's your longest? 3 days? 30 days, okay. 200? It's currently active, 200? 550? Yeah. And it's still going? Yeah. Wow, all right. Does anyone have 550 feet? It's long. All right. Adults. Can I have you stand up real quick? What's your name? Can you explain really quickly in case some of our older friends in this room aren't aware of what a snap streak is?
You have to send a Snapchat at least once a day.
What's a Snapchat?
Picture. You have to send a picture once a day. Yeah, the same person. They have to send one back. Yeah, they have to send one back within 24 hours. And if it's been longer than 24 hours, you lose it.
Lose your streak. Gotta hang on to the streak. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not gonna ask how long you think you could go without Instagram or Fortnite. I'm gonna assume that let me just tell you what the realities are. More than 24 hours probably isn't going to happen with most youth that are on these apps. Very, very unlikely. The reason is these apps have been built intentionally to be addictive. If they weren't addictive, they wouldn't be successful. How much does it cost to download Instagram? Nothing. How much does it cost to download Snapchat? How much money do these apps make? We'll talk about exactly in a little bit. So, what are some of the benefits of social media? What do you think? If you look at some of the positives, yeah. Okay, a really quick way to get news, that's what you said? Okay. What else? I keep going to this side of the room. Let's go over here, yeah.
Contact with people around the world.
Contact with people around the world. Excellent. Yeah, buddy?
Weather.
Weather. Great. Anything else? What are the downsides? Are there any negatives that you can think of?
Waste of time.
Waste of time? What else? Yeah.
Driving.
What's that?
Distracted driving.
Distracted driving, absolutely. False expectations. False comparisons. Too much information. Yeah, in the back.
Anxiety.
Anxiety. Okay. This is, I hope you can see that okay. So this is a list. I didn't put it on this slide unless there's data and an actual study from a reputable source to back it. Okay? So I'm sure there's more, of course. There are more benefits than just those. And we could talk about gospel-related benefits for a long time, in fact. There are more benefits than those, but these are the only ones I could find a legitimate case study that had data behind it. But man, can I find negatives over and over and over. Yeah.
If you own Apple stock or some of the stock that goes into
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I, as a test, right around the time that I did this in my ward, I bought some Facebook stock, and until just a couple days ago, it was doing really well. Basically lost everything I gained. There's a lot of negatives, but we can't get off of it. So why? Do we think it's that much better than it is worse? Is the question. What do the people running apps like Facebook and Instagram think? So do we all know that Facebook and Instagram is the same company, right? Facebook acquired Instagram in 2012, I believe it was. So this is one and the same in terms of companies. I have some really sobering quotes to share with you from former executives of Facebook, people that were responsible for building these apps, Facebook and Instagram, and what they think. So this individual, Chamath, I'm not going to pretend to know. I actually looked it up this morning to try and pronounce it right. Still can't get it right. Anyway, very, very successful tech entrepreneur. He was the VP of growth at Facebook. His job was to make sure this app grew every day at exponential rates. Let me just read quickly what he says. He says that he feels, quote, tremendous guilt over his work on, quote, tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. This is a global problem. It's eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. So this is the guy, like, behind the scenes working on the apps on your phone, saying how guilty he feels for being a part of creating it. And it's a little bit more than just how it affects social behavior. He says, and I had to sort of tweak this because he used a little bit more colorful language than what's in here. I cannot control Facebook or Instagram. I can control my decision, which is that I do not use social media. He used some other words there. I can control my kids' decisions, which is they're not allowed to use social media. This is a man who's made a tremendous amount of wealth from social media. who refuses to use it now because he understands what it's done to people. Let me be clear before I go on. My career to date has relied on social media being a thing, it being something that is useful and valuable. It's been what's provided for my family. I am not going to stand up here and tell you that social media is terrible and it's evil. I will tell you though that I don't really like it. Similar to this man, I've dove pretty deep into it for work, and I don't really like what I've seen. So much so that a business that I started, we sold it, and now I'm doing something in the tech space, but not at all the same. I don't feel great about it, about that area of the internet and that area of technology. Listen to what he says here. This is probably the most alarming thing that I've heard anybody at Facebook say. Your behaviors, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed. How does that make you feel? Those words coming from somebody responsible for building the app that you probably have looked at since I started, before you put your phones up here, at least once. How do you feel when you hear the words, you are being programmed? Yeah, yes. Okay, sounds like agencies being taken away. Any other thoughts? Other words or comments I've heard in response to that question are, sort of feels like I'm being manipulated, or that someone's controlling me in a way, or playing a game with me. Fact is, you're right. Sean Parker, he was the founding president of Facebook, no longer with the company, but by extension also involved with Instagram's leadership, says that Facebook and Instagram exploit a vulnerability in human psychology by creating what he calls a social validation feedback loop. Okay, so what this means, you post a picture on Instagram. I'm interested in Bishop, can you point out a Laurel for me? I could see off Kenna, but Callie. Callie, which one's Callie? Will you, Callie, please stand up. When's the last time you posted something on Instagram? Yesterday.
Yeah.
Why did you post it? What was it?
Staycation.
The staycation?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the picture or video? How'd you look in it? What was like the backdrop? Was it like cool scenery, good lighting?
Cool scenery.
Okay. Awesome, you can have a seat. Sorry to single you out there. So you ask a high school student how often they post to Instagram, and you get a lot of different responses. You get way more frequent from young women than you will from young men. Young men are just looking at the young women, what they post, and occasionally posting some things of their own. But the thing that everybody is craving when they post something, it's got to be just right, because I'm craving social validation. I need a like, I need a comment, and if I don't get it, why post it? And youth that will tell you otherwise, and I'm sure there are plenty in this room that will say, no. Yeah, it is. And that is the secret sauce to Facebook, to Instagram. I'll speak more broadly about Instagram, because I know that the youth in this room are not spending really hardly any time on Facebook, if any at all. We crave that validation, and that's what keeps us coming back. So, this is what Facebook and Instagram and now Snapchat are using to be able to monetize their applications. To the tune of now, these are multi-billion-dollar valued applications. It's absolutely crazy. Do you know somebody that craves or is maybe stuck in the social validation feedback loop? Can you think of somebody that comes to mind? In other words, that person that posts something to Instagram and you know they're just fishing for the light. Or they're fishing for somebody to tell them that they're pretty, or that they're awesome, or that they're so cool and that's so awesome you did that. It's kind of the point, right? It's kind of the point of these posts. Sorry, I already asked this question. I want to talk for a second about how the internet and how social media works, okay? So, when you post something let me read this real quick. Doctrine and Covenants, in section 58, the Savior says, "Behold, he who has repented of his sins, the same is forgiven, and I, the Lord, remember them no more." The internet is the opposite. You make a mistake, you delete it, it kind of didn't really go away. Okay? It's still on a server somewhere. So the way that this works is, for those of you who are not too familiar with how tech works, when you post a photo to Instagram, that photo goes somewhere. Okay? It goes to what's called a server. This is basically a room of a bunch of servers. Okay? It's a piece of hardware. And your photo, think of it as basically this big room, a warehouse full of shelves. And let's pretend like your photo got printed on a sheet of paper and it got put on the shelf. It's there now, okay? And it has your name on it, it has the contents of what you posted, and any sort of comments or likes or whatever else that photo received will stay there in that file on that shelf sort of forever, okay? When you delete it, because you regretted it or something else, even a comment, you regretted it, it doesn't delete it. It doesn't take that photo off the shelf and dump it in the garbage and burn it forever. What it does is it just says, all right, let's just remove that from what we show people. But we're going to keep it because it might be of use to us sometime in the future. That's what the makers of these apps say. So your sort of unintelligent decisions from time to time aren't deleted, okay? They're just maybe not shown to everybody all the time. And that's why these applications can make such a chunk of change, because they know so much about you. So much about you. Also, note that if somebody took a screenshot of something that you regret later having posted, you can't control whether or not they have that screenshot, right? You're not in control of them deleting it or them hanging on to it forever, right? So, what kind of information do these apps know about you? Let me show you a few things. So, this is not comprehensive. This is just a handful of things that these apps know about you. Again, I mentioned I spent a good chunk of my career doing social media marketing, which means we got really good at targeting people based off of this sort of stuff. Depending on what I sell, I might be targeting a female that's ages 30 to 38 that has 4 kids, who was born in the summer and likes volleyball and lives in this zip code. I know so much about her. In fact, maybe I even want to target her based off of what high school she went to and some of the key features or descriptors of her friends. There is a whole lot that these apps know about you. And these apps also share data across from app to app. And there's a whole lot of data that they have on you. Every time you post something, they know you posted it. They're incredibly good at knowing what you posted. They're incredibly good at knowing what you're interested in. The reason is they want to create a profile of you. Every one of you is very unique in the social media world. Not just in the eyes of God, but in the eyes of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. You have a unique profile in each of these apps. It's why some of you see some things and some of you see other things. Now, this is some data taken from Instagram in particular. This is what they posted as the inputs to their algorithm. Their algorithm is basically just some science that dictates what relevancy is. Does that photo or video match things that you have interacted with in the past? Relationships is tied to whether or not you've interacted with that specific account in the past. Profile searches means, is it something that's related to posts from other accounts that you check out often? And then time spent, meaning how much time have you spent looking at posts similar to that? Now listen, posts similar to that. Now, that does not just mean that Instagram can track, like the caption. They can track the contents of a photo or video using machine learning. They can identify that you took a picture with a bunch of friends. They can estimate the approximate age of those friends, the gender that they think they all are, where roughly you may have been. In fact, how often do you include the location tag when you post something? They start to know a whole lot about where you've been and what you're interested in. And then a young man says, those are cute girls. And he looks at that post and a clock starts. And Instagram knows how long you were looking at that post. So if it looks at a profile of a 16-year-old young man who seems to really like photos of groups of girls, and having gone boating or something like that, guess what they're going to give him more of? A whole lot more of that sort of thing. And so these users are sort of victims to the algorithm. So I did an experiment. This is tough to see, I'll point it out. So I did a little test. If you follow, like, or even like passively look at photos, videos of, say, like a basketball player. So I did a search of basketball players. I tapped on a bunch of basketball-related images. I did a search for Utah Jazz, for Donovan Mitchell, for Rudy Gobert. I watched a video, a highlight video. Then I closed Instagram, and I opened it, and I looked at the Discover screen, and what did I see? That is an image of Rudy Gobert. This is a kid in like a highlight video. Interview with LeBron James, interview with John Wall. This is a kid playing basketball. This is, I can't tell, someone from the New Orleans Pelicans. That fast, Instagram changed what it fed me. You want to know what that screen looked like seconds before? I don't see one basketball-related image on that entire screen. I don't know. I look at your photos. So imagine how this content changes if you're looking at inappropriate content. All it takes, it's not only looking at the content, it's how long you looked at it, it's whether you tapped on it, it's whether you searched it, and once you do it once, guess what happens? More is coming. More is coming. And the interesting thing is the only way, there are some ways to purge it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But your Instagram search, kind of discover screen, can tell you a lot about yourself and the things that seemingly are interesting to you. And so can the ads that you're being served, by the way. I bought my boys some Stance socks for church, and lo and behold, how do they know I like Stance socks? I didn't buy them on Instagram. There's some clever things you can do. How do they know I work at a tech company? This is an ad for TechCrunch Disrupt. It's an event that goes on every year in San Francisco for tech entrepreneurs. How do they know that? I didn't say that in my bio. So their whole goal here is to serve you ads and to get you to spend as much time as humanly possible in these apps. The longer you spend in these apps, the more money they make, simply put. You don't have to tap on the ad, you just have to look at it. I have paid a small portion for my own business and businesses that were clients of mine in the past on ads that were just, all we want you to do is look at this. It's called cost per impression advertising, CPM. The longer you're on Instagram, the more money they make. And does it work? Instagram users under age 25 spend more than 32 minutes per day on Instagram. I'm sure it's higher. Instagram will turn these minutes into about $7 billion this year. So, let me talk for these last few minutes about sort of an antidote to a lot of this. First part has to do with self-mastery. The second has to do with using some of these algorithms to your example or to your advantage. I just want to read a few scriptures to tee this up. Proverbs 25:28. My 10-year-old, we went through one of these challenges that I'll extend to you as a family, and this was one that he loved. He that hath no rule over his own spirit, or lacks self-mastery, is like a city that is broken down and without walls. D&C 4:6. Remember faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly kindness, godliness, charity, humility, diligence. Our prophet said, your spirit acquired a body at birth and became a soul to live in mortality through periods of trial and testing. Part of each test is determined if your body can become mastered by the spirit that dwells within it. And lastly, one of my favorite scriptures, 2 Nephi 2:26. This is Lehi speaking. And the Messiah cometh in the fullness of time, that he may redeem the children of men from the fall. And because that they are redeemed from the fall, they have become free forever, knowing good from evil, to act for themselves and not to be acted upon. In other words, we are meant to be in control. We are not meant to be programmed. Once we let ourselves become programmed, we start to surrender at least a fraction of our agency, I believe. First challenge I have for you. Next week, don't bring these phones. Bring the good old-fashioned paper scriptures. Be less distracted. Be engaged when you're at church. I am positive right now, I'm seeing more eyeballs of kids aged 12 to 18 right now than I would if you still had these. I'm 1,000% confident more words were heard today. I hope that they have been useful to you. Bring your physical scriptures to church. You can go, you've gone almost an hour. You can go 3. Piece of cake, right? Absolutely. Second, by the way, these challenges are, I encourage mom and dad to try it as well. Go a full week without social media. Our prophet asked us to do this. I'm going to say do it for real, okay? Because if you have a snap streak that's like 30 days or longer, then you didn't do it, right? So wasn't it like a month ago? Yeah? So, sorry dude, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus. Go full week. Now, not only that, but talk about it in young men's, talk about it in young women's, and then talk about it in family home evening. Mom and dad, try it. Guess what? You can delete those apps from off your phone without deleting your account. It'll still be there waiting for you. But axe it so that you don't have the temptation to bury your weapons, right? Yeah.
Also, I know it's kind of hard for them to use a lot, but most of us adults, you could probably admit that it's pretty crazy how often you're taking on your phone.
Yeah.
And this stuff is so for you too. Like, that's
Yeah.
why-
Thank you. Without question, this is for mom and dad as well. The comment was just, I'm harping on this for the youth, but this is every bit for mom and dad. Everyone in this room, these challenges and this information is relevant for you. Sorry, this is just a funny little image I found of somebody talking about the snap streak. I promise you can go 7 days without it. And look. The streak, this is a girl in blue. The streak is not important. She's right. Anyway. When you're back on social media, assuming you take my challenge seriously, hack Instagram's algorithm. The way you do this, follow the church, follow the prophet on Instagram and in real life. Follow the Quorum of the 12 with First Presidency. Like their images and photos. There's quotes that the church will put out every couple of days. Guess what will happen? Guess what you're going to start seeing in your search screen? You're going to start seeing uplifting things. You're going to start seeing images of the temple. You're going to see a cool little video that the church put out. You're going to see a little bit more diversity in a positive way. And the last thing, mom and dad, to hold you accountable, hold a family council this week. meeting tomorrow, and create a family technology plan. We're out of time. I'll send these slides out to Bishop so that he can share them. These are just some points of discussion that you can have in your family home evening if you choose to follow through with this. Things that you can do to create a family technology plan. I encourage you, this is not going to work if you're dictating. Collaborate with your kids and work with them to create something. I promise you that you'll be better. You'll be better equipped to resist the urge to accept a program, and you will invite the Spirit into your life. I want to just close with this. I have decided to delete Instagram, to delete Facebook. I never had a Snapchat problem. I guess I'm just a hair too old. And my life is measurably better. I find that I like people more. And that's a sad commentary, I think, on me. But I can feel the Spirit more. I'm spending way less time comparing myself to anybody. And probably a little bit more time comparing myself in the past and to my Savior. I invite you to try this. I'm more than happy to share a little bit more with you. There are several slides that we didn't get into, but that's okay. I'll share these with Bishop and we'll kind of go from there. But thank you for letting me come by. It's been a fun opportunity. And leave that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I know we're out of time, but I'd just like to thank Zach and Carly for coming and sharing what Zach knows. They get it just perfect. I know you felt like maybe for the first 55 minutes or whatever, the first 45 minutes this is about you, but this is about all of us. I think this is just, good information that we're not aware of. But I was sharing an example just this morning of some things that I don't know how Big Brother works on everything, but I think we just need, as parents and as families, we just need to safeguard ourselves to the best that we can. We do have this on video. I'll get the slides from Zach, and so this is something that I can send you, and you can talk about this and this information that Zach has as families. I'd encourage you to do that. I think those 4 challenges are something that we really need to think about. As Zach talked about, once the phones came here and when he was talking about maybe we've been feeling like we've been manipulated a little bit. I know we've kind of felt that because I could feel in the room, I think there was a lot of thought process going on. It became a little bit quieter. And it wasn't just this group here that became a little bit quieter and thinking through things. I think all of us. We as adults love to say that this is a kid problem. It's not a kid problem. It's a problem that affects all of us. So thank you very much.